Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about typography. Typography in Flash. So when you add text to Flash, you have three options. You have static text, dynamic text, and input text. So what I'm going to do before we get started and I talk about these different texts is I'm actually going to import some text that I'm going to copy and paste and put in. So I made a layer here for my text. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the text tool. And I'm going to make sure that I actually place a little box here for my text. Otherwise, it's just going to go all the way across. You can actually set the size of your text right here where it says width. So right now, I'm just going to leave it the way I have it. And then I'm going to just right click and I'm going to paste. Now you notice that my text is black and it's black on black. I made my stage black. So I'm going to highlight this before I even go out. And I'm going to select the color right here. You can select the color right in the properties panel. You see here it shows up for the character. And you're going to select right in here and I'm going to select white. So now my text will be white so that you're able to see it. I'm going to move it down. Okay, because I'm going to put a title on top, but I'm not going to do that right now. So there's different kinds of types of fonts that you can use in this program. So I'm just going to bring this over here so that you can see the property bar while I'm talking. So the first one that we have just pasted is called static text. So static text, it can't be selected or edited by the end user. So Flash embeds the font information when you add static text so your audience sees the font on stage as you intended it. So it's just basically just what you see is what you get. So you use static text for display text such as titles, labels, and other information text. So dynamic text, now you can just go right down here and the next one is dynamic text. If I select that, then that can be controlled with ActionScript code. Now you have to keep this in mind when you're working on in Flash and you're working with typography. You can dynamically change the contents of the text to respond to different conditions while your movie plays. For example, you can use dynamic text for a scoreboard that shows a player's current score during an interactive game. So the next one right here, the last one, is called input text. So input text is something that you will use if you want your user to enter something from the keyboard or a touchscreen. So with ActionScript code, you can analyze the text, store the information, process it for different responses during the playback of the project. For example, you're going to use input text for questionnaires or for order forms for online purchasing. So what we're going to use right here, right now, is just static text. So I made a new file. I'm going to move this over here. So I made a new file. It's ActionScript 3. And I made a layer in my timeline down here for the text, as you can see. I selected static text because that's what I'm working with. And I just copy and pasted this into my little text box here. So you can actually go up to View and select Rulers. And when you select Rulers, I think some of you have already been doing that. You'll realize that you can pull out a guideline. You might want to do that. You might, so that you can just move your text so that it aligns right along the guideline. So you can also, like I said, you can also put your desired width here. And I'm just going to keep it the way I have it for right now. But if I was actually working with a project and I had to have a certain width, I would put that in. You know, a lot of times you'd be given a certain size from your client, you know, that your stage has to be in the certain size of the site. So in the character palette of the properties bar, you can choose a font. A lot of you have already been working with this, but I'm just going to go through everything because it's really important to understand. Right now this font is Times New Roman and it's regular and it's size 18. So I'm going to just go through and I'm going to choose a sans serif font. Sans serif fonts are really easier to read online, and this is going to go online, so I'm just going to select it all. Right now I have a serif font, so I'm going to choose a sans serif font. And if I open up here, I have a lot of fonts in my computer. I'm just going to choose Veranda. because Veranda is a pretty easy font to read. I'm going to change this to 16 because you notice that Veranda is a larger font. So let me just change this to 16. Let's see how it looks. I'm going to pull this up. Veranda is a good font to use online. So I think I'm liking that, what I have so far. I can choose, you know, if I want, if I select right here, I can choose regular, italic, bold italic. Remember now you're working with white on black. So whenever you work with reverse colors, something like this, white on black, it already has a very bold appearance to it. So if I select this, watch what happens when I put on bold. It actually becomes very, let me just deselect. It actually becomes really hard to read. It's really just kind of yells out at you. So I'm just going to keep this at regular. That's what I had it. I think it looks nice. So I'm just going to keep it just the way I have it. So you have your size. Let me just check the text again. If you notice here, right here, the size here, if you hold your mouse down, you can increase and decrease your size that way. Just by selecting your text. You have to select it out first. And then you can just go through and do a scrubber right here. You can just hold your mouse down. You can actually visually see what it looks like as you're doing it. I'm just going to put this right back down to 16 again. That's where I like it. And right in here, you have a little palette here that I showed you a second ago that you could actually choose your colors. You can choose your colors this way by choosing a swatch, or you can just choose this little color selector, the picker. And I think some of you guys have been working with this already. If I choose a color, and you can choose down here, select different colors. You notice that it changes. You also have a slider here that you can choose from. But I'm just going to cancel that out. But I'm just going to keep it the white color that I have it. So you can also choose your alignment, which is down here in the paragraph section here. If I want to, you know, I want to keep this left align. If I want to center align it, I wouldn't really want to do that because it just doesn't look that great and it's really hard to read. Or I can right align it. Sometimes you may want to right align something, you know, depending on how you're working on the page. And you might want to justify. Justify text, let me just stop this for a minute. Let me just put it back to justified again. For some reason it didn't justify the text. Let me just see what's going on here. No, it's saying it's justified, but it doesn't look justified to me. So let me just see what's going on with this program. So it looks justified here, but when I let it go, it doesn't look justified. But anyway, sometimes you just have to be really careful because justified type, you can see how there's a lot of big spaces in this type. It actually causes like what you call rivers. Unless you really work on this font, you know, when it's left aligned, you know, you'd have to move some of the letters, you know, maybe just bring this in a little bit. You know, you just have to kind of play around with it just to maybe move the letters down and just kind of make this look as nice as possible before you justified it. You know, you just kind of make this as even as possible down on the right side. So we talk about paragraph text. Let's talk a little about adjusting leading and tracking. Now, if I was actually working on a project like this, I would want to put a little bit of leading, which is space between my lines in my project. It just makes it a lot easier to read. By default, your leading is set to 120%, so you can actually drag your leading spreader in the character section of the palette, and this will allow you to see how your text is going to look. So let's just go down and let's find where the leading is. So this is the leading right here. So if I select this, you see how it just shows you how this is going to look. So I want to have some space, enough that it's easy to read online, but not look like it's lagging. Let's see how this looks. I actually like that. So what I may do is I may just make my font a little smaller. Let's see how this looks. I'll make this 15 instead of 16. You can just kind of play around with it a little bit and try to figure out what is going to look the best. I'm very particular when it comes to typography. Maybe I'll make this 14. Let's see how this is looking. See, it's nice to have some space between your text. You know, when your lines are too close together, they're really hard to read. I always believe that, you know, especially online, you really need to have some space. Let me just try just a little bit more. Let's see how that looks. See, I even like that better. I think this is looking really nice. I think it's easier to read. You know, if you have your lines too close together, it's very difficult for your user to read online. Now, as far as tracking goes, tracking is the space between your characters. I would never use any tracking in my body copy because it just doesn't look right. You know, your body copy is all set and ready to go just the way it is. It's measured perfectly. It just reads really nice. But if I want to, I'm going to put another layer in my timeline, and I'm going to call this my heading. And I'm going to make a heading for this. So I'm just going to select the text tool again. And I'm going to select up here. I'm going to keep this veranda. I may make it bold. Let's see how it looks. I'm going to make this font bigger. I'm going to make it about maybe 22. I can actually write them in. And then I'm going to write the preschool years. Okay, let's see how this is looking. And I'm going to align it so that it aligns on the left with the body copy. I'm going to check the body copy, make sure that's aligned correctly. Make sure they're both aligned. Now I'm going to adjust the tracking on this title. I think it might help the readability on this. So let's just go over to where it says tracking. I have to find it. Here it is. Letter spacing right here. So it's right next to where it says size. So let's just do it a little. That's at 2. Let's see how that looks. That actually looks pretty good. It really is dependent on what font that you're using, but I think this is looking good. I think it's a little easier to read. So I like what I have so far. So like I said, you don't want to use letter spacing for your body copy. It's just used for your headings. So another thing we're going to talk about a little bit is applying anti-aliasing. So this lets you smooth the edges of your text on screen. So it's real important, and it's useful for small font sizes. So I have that's already checked here, right here where it says anti-alias, right here at least. So I checked the one for readability. So you notice that there is one for device fonts, bitmap text, animation, readability, and custom. So you can just go through in each one. If you use the device fonts, the Swain file will use fonts installed on the viewer's computer to display the font. So this option doesn't increase the size of your file. You should use this option really just for common fonts like Veranda or Arial. But readability is what I usually select right here. And this allows for improved legibility of embedded fonts, particularly at small sizes. So you use this option, you must embed the font. When you embed the font, Flash copies the font into the Swain file so that the font does not need to be present on the viewer's computer. So this is real important to think about. If I was using a different font, but since I'm using Veranda, I probably wouldn't have to do this. But if I was using a different font, I would really want to have this checked. So if you select the one for animation here, so that creates a smoother animation of the text by ignoring alignment and kerning information. To use this option, you must embed the font also. So when you embed fonts, Flash copies the font into the Swain file, and the font does not need to be present, just like on the previous one we were talking about, the readability one. And then there's the bitmap text, and that is right here. So this is useful for displaying small font sizes. Bitmap fonts do not contain outline, which helps keep the font size of a published Flash document to a minimum. And then you have the custom one. So this is to modify thickness and sharpness to control the effects this has on your text. So you can just kind of play around with these, but I usually will select this one here and make sure that my font is embed. And you can just select right here where it says embed, and it opens up a dialog box. And then it just goes through and just select the font that you're working with and make sure that this font is embedded. So next we're going to talk a little bit about filters. Filters, you just have to kind of open this up a little bit, pull it down, and they're really all the way down the bottom. You just have to hold your mouse down and open it up. They're right here. So I may want to try to put a filter on the text. It just, helps to add a little interest. It really depends upon what you're working with. But a word of advice about filters is to use them sparingly and cautiously. You might not necessarily want to use a filter for something like this, but if you're creating, some sort of design and you really needed to use a filter, they are there. So let's just take a look. I'm actually going to make this text a little bigger. I'm going to bring it up a little closer so you can see as I'm applying these filters. So let me just go through and make this a little bit bigger just so you can see what I'm doing here. Okay. So that will be helpful. So I'm going to select the text and make sure it's selected. And then I'm going to go down here and I'm going to look at some of these filters. Now to select the filter, all you have to do is just hit where it says add filter right here. Okay, so the first one is a drop shadow. And then you notice that it opens up a little box here. And you can select the blur on it, the strength, the quality. You can make it low, medium, or high, whatever you decide. You can select the angle, knockout, inner shadow, whatever you want. You can select the color. So I may want to put white here since I have my, no, actually I want to have to select a different color because you're not going to see it. So maybe I'll just select red. So you can just kind of play around with this and just see how it looks. Let's just see how it looks on my image. So now you can see it with the red. If I select it again, select my text again, and I can just kind of change some things on it and see if it really makes any difference. See, I've added a little blur to it. So you just got to kind of play around with it and just kind of see what you like and what you don't like. I'm going to just click this, and you'll notice it says right down here, remove all. So I'm going to take it off so that I can show some other things. Now you have the blur. You also have the high, medium, and low on that. You can select blur X, blur right. You can just play around with this. You see how it changes it? It's just kind of cool how you can just make some of these different effects on your file. There may be a time where you want to put some of these kind of effects on. And again, I'm going to remove it. Then the next one is the bevel. That's already creating some sort of effect. You have inner, outer, full. You can change the angle right here. You can change the highlight. May not make it so bright. You change the shadow. Maybe make it a little lighter. You can change the distance. Again, you can play around with all of these and just see how they look. I'm just going to remove it again. And then just go through the gradient glow. So you'll notice that you could also choose high, low, medium on that. And you also can choose your angle and everything. And right here you can choose your gradient. You can choose your colors. You can add points. You can play around with all these and just see, as you're working on it, you can see how it looks as you're working on it. You may say, maybe I like that. And then again, I'm going to take it off. There's not a lot of filters, but there's enough filters that you can just kind of play around with it and just, here's one for adjusting color, brightness. You're not going to really see that too much on the white, but if you had a, different color on there, you would actually see this actually is changing the white a little bit. But if I had a different color for my font, let's just try making this a different color. Maybe I'll make this a blue color. Oh, came out green. That's interesting. Oh, that's because I was playing with these. See how it changes the color? So let's just try playing around some of these. See what it does. So it kind of does make some, you can change your hue, saturation, contrast, and brightness. You're adjusting the color just like you would in a photograph if you were working with a photograph. So it has a lot of different effects that you can create, with all these different filters. So that's basically it, what I want to talk about as far as typography goes. So just kind of play around with these and experiment with some of these different filters and get used to working with typography in this program just as you would any other program. So I'm going to stop here.